Vermicompost is a nutrient-rich byproduct of vermicomposting. Vermicompost is a mix of decayed bedding, food scraps, and worm castings, which can be harvested in 3 to 6 months depending on the size of your bin and the number of worms you have in it. The term castings is actually somewhat inaccurate because castings refer to the casting aside movement of tunneling earthworms. The worms that we use, red wigglers, are shallow feeders that do not create tunnels. Therefore, the castings that we refer to are worm feces. Vermicompost or castings can be collected using several different methods, but with all of them, you want to start by removing any large pieces of food scraps and other material that is not broken down. When preparing to collect castings, you should stop feeding the worms for a week or two, which encourages them to finish up any leftover food in the bin. This first method is often referred to as the dump and sort method and is easy but can be time-consuming. Carefully dump the contents of the bin onto a tarp or newspapers and lightly tap the sides and bottom to loosen up the contents. Here I have the entire pile spread out so that you can see all of the worms we have. You can sort the worms out several different ways, but the easiest way for me is to have a large pile or several large piles and work through it in sections. Red wiggler worms do not like the light and will move to the bottom of the pile to get away. Gently move any worms that you see into a new bin. Here, I am using my hand to gently brush the worm castings or vermicompost away from the main pile. Keep up this process until you have a worm-free pile of castings and a small pile that is mostly made up of worms. Another common method used is called the bait and switch method. With this method, start feeding your worms at one end of the bin for several weeks before you plan to collect the compost. Most of the worms will migrate to the side with the food, and you can remove the vermicompost from the side that you haven't been feeding on. You want to check the sorted compost for any stray worms. Here, the finished vermicompost is on the top of the plate, and as you can see, it's very dark and rich in color. On the bottom side of the plate, you can see the peat moss mix that we use as our new worm bedding. Now that you've collected your vermicomposting and castings, you can spread it out on a newspaper or tarp and allow it to dry for a few hours before storing. Some people also do an extra step of sieving or sifting the compost over a screen. This is done to remove any undigested food or bedding pieces that are left over and leaves you with the most pure worm castings. I am using a kitchen strainer to do this, but you could use any kind of fine mesh or small screen. But overall, the finished product will be pretty fine. Finally, you can use your collected castings right away to side dress plants, turn them into a tea, or you can store them in a jar like this one and use them for later.